Yeah. Let's go. Just so I understand kind of what we're doing for the exhibits and try to figure out as much as we can.
Well, I've been wanting to catch up with you guys for years.
Sure. I'm new. Kenny says you know. So.
Hold on 1 second.
We'll wait till you
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of my only witness these days. Don't have any other family or friends. So in the past, I've always been super hot-headed and, well, argumentative, and I'm sure people tune me
my
out.
only knowledge of you or introduction to you has been within these vanilla folders. So.
Sure.
First of all, I'm Joe Petrone.
Good to meet you. William Montgomery.
So, you're saying event 1, 2, and
Okay,
3,
so
soft gold, is that how you pronounce it?
yeah, so the
park that West approached you at the beginning, right?
yeah, so that was the
That's the first
event,
audio, and that's the audio.
and that's
you
going to
want
be
to-
just the witness statement of mine. That's just hearsay.
All right.
That was all just hearsay. Him hearsay, me hearsay.
And so when we talked about you seem like you're well versed, and I've read your motions to dismiss. So I'm not going to patronize you by saying, try to
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
hearsay. I just wanted to say that I just objected because the rules of evidence.
Of course,
I think
I was
dictate.
actually hoping you would.
So Saco Park was the first one. Witness statement that you wanted in. You can raise that issue when you testify, if you decide to testify. Then Lee Martinez Park would be
the camping
citizens-
ticket, and
That's
the
the audio. Right?
audio for the camping ticket, and that's the one in which.
But that's Exhibit 5. I'm going to already provide that to the judge. The video incident, the second incident at Lee Martinez Park, is the Exhibit 6 that you want me to.
And so, in chronological order, it would be Soft Gold, then the camping ticket in Lee Martinez, then Jefferson Park, the couple of days there, and then later on, the next month, a month later, or a couple of weeks later, was the second Lee Martinez Park, but it was over in a parking lot.
First and then second,
This-
Martinez.
Yeah, and so the body cam footage obviously was there. So
Sure. And I knew which one there's a couple different POVs, and then I look at the Jefferson Park as kind of a separate incident with different officers that didn't really relate to this event.
Actually, that was why I wanted to include it specifically, was because that kind of provides the context that they're alleging I'm making these threats within, and that was the digging yourself a grave comment that had been extrapolated by Giddings, which was not said in front of Mike West, nor was it a threat, nor was it violence, and so forth and so on. And so, but basically me talking throughout that entire spiel was about illegal tickets, and we're finding out things wrong with the government and so forth. And so I find that to be just as paramount as the audio from the camping ticket. I imagine you guys would not be able to refer to your affidavit where that comment of digging yourself a grave without actually referencing that same event, because that was in the affidavit. So
Gotcha.
I felt like it was pretty important. I thought that's why you guys were so concerned.
Okay. So we got 4 events then.
And then the fourth one. By the way, Jefferson Park might be 2 videos of the 14th and the 15th.
Well, yeah, they got the POVs for.
Yeah, the whole
I think
thing.
we have 3.
There's probably 3. But then the fourth event would be.
So you're specifically talking about any sort of POV that captured that statement about.
Yeah, the digging yourself a grave comment. Exactly, because it was taken out of context.
Sure. Okay.
So.
So that is, and then the fourth event you said was
is the actual video footage of me
the
stepping
second
aside.
The second Lee Martinez.
Yeah, the second Lee Martinez.
So Saco Park witness statement that I objected to, Lee Martinez, would be the audio of the first interaction, and then you got the Jefferson count, or the Jefferson Park. I keep saying Jefferson County because I deal with them a lot. The digging grave comment, specifically in regards to that, and then any sort of Lee Martinez video of the citizen's arrest, the fourth. That would technically be the fourth type of situation. Okay.
Situation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Perfect. Anything else that you wanted me to be aware of before we?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, no one's ever asked for my side of the story. Did you want to hear it? It's really short, and I've been wanting to get it to you guys. I've tried to get it to Bob, and he kind of never returned my voicemails. But it's so easy. It almost sounds too easy, and it almost sounds like I'm a criminal trying to get out of it or something like that. But truthfully speaking, I've been wanting to talk on an attorney level with somebody for a very long time.
All right, go ahead, shoot, man.
Okay, so, well, let me ask real quick. Do you have a couple minutes? 15 minutes?
Yeah, I'm here for you.
15:30? Okay. Well, just try to be brief, but it's really hard. But basically, I got to give context. I got to give background, just so we understand what's going on. So basically, I came from a Mormon family. They're very abusive. I had kind of a kleptomania problem that never got addressed. They kind of prayed over it. I ended up committing some crimes as an early adult. That's where my felonies come from. But
That's 2004 case.
Yeah. And so I actually ended up over pleading to those. I was kind of coerced. I ended up pleading guilty to 3 people's crimes that I didn't even do. So that's always been an investigation I've been trying to get people to look at. Is the burden of proof was shifted onto me, and these 3 people had claimed to the DA's office, you guys, that they had given me the money, and then since I didn't say anything, they sort of just pitted on me and said, if you go to trial, you lose, but if you plead out, we'll give you this amount. And I pled to a restitution amount before any sort of restitution hearing, and then basically I just kind of got coerced into playing it because I wrote the checks. Basically, this is some old crap, and so I'm definitely a rehabilitated or habilitated a former offender. I'm not.
It was Judge Blair.
And by the way, that was Judge Blair too. So the whole Timothy Masters thing, she basically kind of railroaded me too.
So she was the prosecutor in that case.
Yeah, and so. That is literally why we have to mention this, is because I had mentioned to her personally in front of everybody and to the DA's office and everything that these 3 people were co-conspirators of mine, and that I knew them from school, and then I just simply didn't say anything before because I was afraid to. And so it was too late by the time they had ruled. They basically said they're considered victims. We're not going to reclassify them as co-conspirators. And then, I started my life at 18 and a half with a $25,000 bill, which I was convinced I needed to pay. So I was all excited, super excited, and then I started having trouble with jobs and stuff, having a record now. And so the reason I say this all is because it ended up being a really big railroad, because my brother was kind of my only witness, and so I started.
Hasn't helped him. I'm the only sibling who's helped him out.
Yeah, they're all sisters, and so he's my only family related brother. And basically, when he started kind of going down at the same time because of the Mormonism, he was falling away. My parents didn't believe him. And
I had 3 lawsuits. I was falsely accused of a rape accusation, actually 5. I went to a psychiatrist's office and I was wrongfully diagnosed bipolar, given bad pills. The next job was just a food service job. It just kind of ran me into the ground. But basically, all these problems, I wasn't able to help Will out because I was dealing with my own financial problems, my own disabilities.
Yeah. And so
What's the issue against you?
he's 4 years younger than me. And so we both broke away, and we both spent the last decade basically trying to find good jobs, good places, and it was either a crappy job, crappy place, or car breaking down. So between the 3, we could never really make it meet.
We're born and raised in Fort Collins, so we've never left, except for one term in Loveland.
So yeah, that's what I thought too. So I was
born and
taken
raised.
aback by your first statement that you're out of county.
Oh yeah, our van is broken down in Longmont right now.
So technically in Boulder County, but
Boulder County, sure, yeah.
Yeah, Boulder County.
So, but basically we couldn't find the good jobs and places, and we ended up deciding to break this 3 unrelated rule here in town, the U+2 law. But we kind of knew that it was a blanket policy that's not really enforced correctly in the sense that it's applied to non-students, but it's geared towards students, and it was originally like sugar beet immigrants, things like that. And so basically it was kind of a place that we felt as though if we can get away with it, we could case law that, and so we ended up living lower on our cost for rent for like a year. Basically, we were renting out a house with this couple people
From our friends,
and because we're trying to put together this paperwork for the Blair, we're trying to clean up all of his bipolar and workman's comp issues, and so
I was on unemployment.
Yeah, and so we ended up getting sued by the city. The city found out that we were living in here by our roommates. First trying to illegally evict us, and then once we called the police to get back in, they called the city to try and fine us out because they didn't want to evict us. And since they got the city involved, Dale Wood, the city's inspector for 3 million, he came in and fined just the 2 of us. And so this is what started the big spiral of our lives going downhill. Is when he fined the 2 of us, we knew that it was fraud.
We were going through an eviction. I didn't have money for a storage unit. It was cold outside. Basically, we were going to freeze to death, and so we were going through an eviction period. That was the trailing of springtime into summer.
Okay.
Yeah, and so basically,
Sorry?
this all started in 2015. Okay. So 2015, we end up having to exercise our rights while we're waiting for eviction. They keep finding us $1,000 a day. We know it's fake. It's 2 people out of a 5
There's
case.
a total of $71,000 each in fines.
So when we get to municipal court, it's $141,000 is what they're asking from us, and obviously we did that to prove the point that it's frivolous. And but it did take us a while to put together this motion to dismiss. Since it's a civil court, we don't have any attorneys. They won't give you public defenders and stuff, so we couldn't get any help. So we had to put together this big, fat, ugly motion to dismiss. It was like 50 pages long, and there are a big counter complaint, 200 pages. And but this kind of shows the bureaucratic nature of us, that we researched the law. We found out that what racketeering charges are. How people cover up crimes, ego collapses because they have an image problem and they kind of don't know how to own up to crimes when they break them. And basically, we caught the people that were kicking us out perjuring in court to cover up that they had rented it out for us for so long because they were trying to hide that they broke the 300 labor
We were being honest in case line that they wanted to get away with it.
Yeah.
We thought that they were going to go.
And so the city kind of racketeered with these people to like ratify and get away with applying laws correctly.
This is coming to the attempted influence.
Yeah, I promise. Oh, the whole point is that this bureaucratic mess started us on our feet or down. We're stuck on the streets putting together paperwork until we get our jobs and places
The
back.
next place we went to, the last place where we were trying to scrounge up money, a drunk roommate came home and assaulted us both. We called the cops and we pressed charges, and the DA took the charge and pleaded it down to some alcohol thing. And then from there, we officially became homeless. The homeless shelter doesn't have adequate resources. He has to have food, here is bed, plus it's a private religious institution. We've heard in other cities that it's unconstitutional to take in homeless people if they can't find shelter. Well, we've been in this town our whole life. We've actually been homeless before. I've been moved along by a cop at 20 years old the same way that this is happening now. And so we were in the forest and we get ticketed, we moved, we get ticketed, we get moved, we get ticketed, and then it led to Occupy Jefferson, and then led to...
Yeah, so as we're learning about the law and being ticketed, we're also trying to be responsible and just staying as far as we can away from the people. So we're not like purposely being in parks or anything like that. And so
it's like half case line. We try to hide as much as we can, but if you were to ticket us, we were going to case line on a poverty status that there's no Section 8 housing, 3-year waiting list. You can't make us go back to a job and witness tamper ourselves.
And so basically, when we were down there putting together paperwork for this first case, once we finished it, we already started to get tickets and move along for the other things. And we were, they had fudged a formal warning and banned us off of CSU property without actually getting us on trespassing first.
CSU was the first place.
And so from there, we basically started kind of collecting information from other homeless people. We were starting to figure out what exactly is going on in the world and so forth. And before you know it, we were part of Occupy Jefferson, but not really part of Occupy Jefferson. It was like Zach and some other people.
We associated with the homeless people's issues, but we're friends with them, but we don't actually like totally hang out with all of them.
Yeah, it was more of a political agreement we had. And if you notice during the Occupy Jefferson protests, if you were looking through the footage, they tried to citizen arrest people all the time for tickets, and we never
Zach
said
would
that.
yell it out all the time. They just never did. They never cared.
But we never did because I don't citizen arrest people over tickets. And so I'll get to that in a second. But basically,
if anything, we want the tickets.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So from there, the Occupy Jefferson, we happened to get this before Occupy Jefferson, so a month before that happened. This was just after our first couple of tickets are being moved along. We're just hanging out in Softball Park during the middle of the day, and we're charging our phones. We have our bikes and our backpacks and everything right there. And Mike West, from a distance, goes up to this one vehicle that's turned around backwards, and he looks at it, looks over at us, looks back at it, and we kind of anticipate that he might talk to us, but we also know that we have a whole bunch of homeless queue here, so we don't really feel like talking to him.
We were at least safe just in the afternoon. Obviously, if you're in a park after hours,
2 o'clock.
And
so he came over and from a distance said, "Hey, is this your car?" And we didn't answer, and so he got closer. And when he asked again, we shook our heads no. And then I said, "We don't answer questions. We don't have attorneys present." And then out came 3 statements in a row, both all of which we sat there and kind of cowered and continued to remain quiet.
That's in that witness statement there.
And that's what I was going to say. So the 3 statements in a row was. Boy, it's been so long. Oh, that's interesting. So he kind of taking it back maybe. But then we don't say anything, and he's like, if you guys don't cooperate, I'm going to get you on trespassing. And then that's when we really knew that we weren't in the wrong. We just keep being quiet. And then at that point, he's like, kind of frustrated, doesn't get anything out of us, pulls out his phone, starts saying, well, I'm going to remember you guys, and starts taking pictures of us. And then that's when I immediately asked him, hey, man, what are you doing with this camera? Is that your camera? He said yes. And then from there, why are you taking pictures of us? He wouldn't answer. And then at that exact same time when I'm asking him questions, he's obviously getting flustered. As he's turning around, throws his business card at us. And as he's walking back to the vehicle extremely fast because he doesn't want to even finish the conversation with us, that's when I tried to tell him, hey man, the police need to be here. This is like a crime. I think it's harassment. I have a right to citizen's arrest. And I said to him,
People
hey
like
man.
to provoke us in fights because tall males or whatever, and so they try to entice, intimidate, to see if we're going to actually throw a punch or something.
And so all I did was follow him toward the vehicle, and then when I said, hey man, you're under citizen's arrest, he turned around and said, don't touch me, and he just got in his vehicle and left. And that was it. And so it wasn't even an attempted citizen's arrest. It wasn't even a physical citizen's arrest because it wasn't even like there was no obstruction. I'm sure they could have charged me with a ton of things if I actually put my hands on it. So it was more of a politeness battle, and I was just really cordial about it, and I just said, hey man, it'd be really nice if cops could get here. I really think this is a crime. I wanted to detain you over. And so since he ran, all I had left to do was call up the police. I get Wes Haynes up here, and then basically he actually, we find out after reading the police report and comparing it to the police policy handbook that he basically changed what we had said that we shouldn't citizens arrest, that we should go the complaint route, and that's actually violative of the policy.
Yeah, Wes Haynes was tampering with our affidavit, basically.
And so the policy of the handbook for the police is that they cannot advise nor against or for a citizen's arrest. All they can do is just say that they'll, be willing to accept somebody if they have them. But basically, he kind of just plainly violated his actual police handbook there. And then from there, I'm trying to do as much research as I can. I'm putting together whatever paper I can. I end up talking to Giddings during this Occupy Jefferson protest. And we're just in, a big battle in general. We're concerned because he ended up taking us outside of a park, claiming that it was this map from the Parks Department.
And just to interrupt, don't think I'm ignoring you or anything. I'm reading through. I'm listening.
Cool.
Just
we're trying to fit so many facts in so little time.
So I'm not tuning you out. I'm listening at you.
But basically,
I won that trial on a municipal level.
Yeah. So
I'm fairly aware. I got up to speed before Bob took off to a different division. And I know that you just had court today, right, for that disorderly conduct public.
Oh, that's something else entirely. Yeah. Who knows?
So I think I'm up to speed with the underlying facts, but I'm certainly happy to take your interpretation, which I think you did fairly well in this witness statement of yours. So
yeah, exactly. And so controversies aside, is just kind of what are the facts, what is going on. During the Occupy Jefferson protest, we obviously had some significant issues with them about ticketing us on non-designated areas, and that's kind of what our previous lawsuit was about with the previous tickets that we were winning in. Essentially, we had, before the Occupy Jefferson protest, I had entered into it on the 14th and the 15th. Before that, on the 13th through the 12th, I had set up the exact same encampment or whatever you want to call it that I had been ticketed by Mike West earlier that week. I set it up next to the Occupy Jefferson protest in front of police officers because I wanted to see if they would do the same thing or it would just be this discretion they would use And so basically it was an air mattress and it was a tarp and it was me laying down on it with my sleeping bag and my bike next to me, just like everything before. And basically the cop told me you can't sleep, but you can hang out here. And from there, I never got ticketed. I slept there the entire night in the same exact position to see if somebody would do the same thing. And so that was kind of the contention I had with these illegal tickets that I was alleging people are writing us to human traffic us out of town. Basically, ultimately, there's these sleeping tickets that we've caught them using interchangeably at that point. Park curfew, constructing structure, and camping, obviously. And when we realized what was going on, we were seeing that basically elements weren't necessarily being met or even alleged or looked at. Maps weren't being used. Statutes weren't even being read. And that's why when I was receiving this ticket by Mike West during the camping ticket event, that's why I said in response to him, by the way, in that camping trial, so rewinding just a second here, if you go through the actual entire event, the way in which it unraveled, I was waking up, so I'm kind of disoriented. I'm telling him, hey man, there's a previous citizen's arrest that never went through, and I just, I promised you the next time I saw you, I would do it. And then they were like, well, no, sorry, we got to write tickets. And it was like, yeah, no, we're not stopping you. And you can hear the audio, like, write your tickets. I'll see you in court. This has nothing to do with tickets. So, like, we need the tickets, and we that's where you get your Fourth Amendment rights, unlawful seizures and so forth. And so, I personally, I think that is just the most flabbergasting concept that these people trumped up. And I think it's based upon the next comment that I made in the Occupy Jefferson. And let's put it this way. Mike West, after I made that comment, details. During this camping ticket event, when I made that comment of quit your job, save your life, that alone was already taken out of context by the police. If you listen to the actual audio, I was very careful.
So we're talking about the 3 options statement that you made.
Yeah.
1, you can quit your job and probably save your life. 2, you cannot find us and then get in trouble for not doing your job. Or 3, you can find us and probably end up losing your job.
Yeah, so it was a non-threat, because I'm telling them if they don't do their job, look, you'll get in trouble. I'm not telling you to not do your job. I'm also telling you that basically you'll get in trouble if you keep doing your job, and that you might. Everyone heard sort of this, political hyperbole of like, hey man, quit while you're ahead. File unemployment. You might have a better chance at, if you feel as though these tickets are questionable in nature, you don't have to write them. And so right then and there, that's not even a threat, because I'm telling him I can't do anything myself. That it's up to him. And so it's kind of a crude way of saying it. We had actually formulated that.
I'll see you outside. I gotta go.
Oh sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'll see you downstairs.
Yep.
Okay, so, but basically, when I had made this comment, I had actually formulated with my brother prior, because we were dealing with a David Irwin that had found us in the location where we were staying there. But basically, it was a plural comment. It was quit your jobs, save your lives. And I might not have said save your lives because it's just shortened, but it was a...
Thank you, sir.
It was...
You as well.
Sorry, I'm getting to it, but basically the context it was made in, it was just out of the blue after they're writing SR tickets. It's kind of filler. It was really quiet, and so when we said it, I literally, it was just my little political, jab for the day, and then basically after I finished saying it, he said, Mike West specifically was like, when you say save your life, what exactly do you mean? And so right there, you can almost already see how they're sort of potentially framing and building a case. And so in his police statement that he made to Giddings, he had to say that, I asked him what he meant by that, and he said he had nothing to say, or he didn't have much to say. And so obviously, if you listen to the audio, I had the entire answer to say, which said bureaucratically, you're being charged as a big ugly complaint. Like I said, I have a 50-page complaint I already put through with the 3 unrelated rule, and we were building an actual bureaucratic complaint with evidence and tickets and everything. And so Giddings, when he filled out his police report, by the way, left all of that out. He left the word bureaucratic out, and he kind of just, amazingly enough, he got the camping ticket audio correct in his statements, and he said that I otherwise talked about this Soft Gold Park citizen's arrest, and so, but that I was intending to do a citizen's arrest over tickets. And so he actually was sort of halfway correct on that. Mike West, when he said that I tried to citizen's arrest him over tickets, and that Mike West, or West Haines said, don't touch him. That never, ever happened anywhere in the audio, because I didn't try and stop them from writing tickets. But I will tell you, the reason why they have to say that is because there was an event after the camping ticket that's not on audio that happened directly after they finished writing us tickets. And it was me saying, hey man, I'm going to citizen's arrest you now for Soft Gold Park. And then that's when Wes Haines was like, nope, don't touch him. And then that's when I said, well, now you're probably under citizen's arrest too, Wes Haines, for conspiring to suppress human rights, USC 232. And so I kind of sort of politely tried to place the both of them under citizen's arrest at the very end.
What do you mean by that? politely?
Like a politeness battle. I just said, hey, Mike West, I'd like to place you under citizen's arrest for the Softball Park incident. I didn't read any case law, or I didn't know anything at that time about staleness or either way, and so I felt as though it was still a open case, but I wasn't willing to actually touch people, and I was still learning how my rights worked, because you actually have to detain him and have to take him down and by gunpoint and stuff, and so it wasn't even a citizen's arrest, what I'm trying to say. It ended up being more political hyperbole.
You meant not physically, right?
Yeah, exactly. There was, and Wes Haynes said, "Don't touch him." I didn't touch him. I didn't touch Wes Haynes. I'm not going to try and get into a battle like that. But I have to sort of try and exert some rights, because 16 CR 163201 is my right to citizens arrest people. It's a state statute, and it's based upon federal backing, and it's still there. It's on the statutes. It's just very rarely used. But we all know that, like, the cops, we gave them power in the past, and to delegate out, that they're not the ultimate people that do arrests, that we citizens turn around to arrest. So it's all standard procedure in their police handbook and everything. And so they started butchering it more and more. And then basically what I truly think happened, and this is why I have to report this, is because, and this is what we're putting together as our complaints too for the outside world, is just this series of events. And also for you guys, because this is your jurisdiction and these people are potentially committing crimes in it. But basically, I talked to Mike Calhoun, Parks Department director. I have a really good rapport with him from my previous cases, because he's the one that explained how they're not the Parks Department for the Jefferson Park case and stuff. And so I was asking him basically, and I have this on audio too. I have a lot of stuff on audio I got to get to you guys, just as an external investigation kind of thing. But
okay, so not in relation to our trial that's coming up now.
Yeah, I mean, it's I could, but it's more like burden of proof is on you guys, so I'm just gonna. But so basically, though, he and this is why I'm telling you this now, is because technically you should still be able to go and talk to him as a witness for this upcoming trial. But he, when he talked to me, I clarified. I asked him if Mike West had ever reported anything to him about this threat from Softball Park, Lee Martinez camping incident. And he said that no one ever came in and talked to him, and that only after the digging yourself a grave comment happened a week later did Giddings and Mike West sort of work together to come up with this idea that there were two threats now. And so they basically sort of reneged, and we've seen this before where they basically feel bad that they didn't do anything before, or that they didn't have as much of a case before, and then now that they have this other one, they could stack it. And so that's when Giddings went to the Parks Department.
So is it your position that because nothing was reported after the first incident, that they couldn't have ever reported another incident?
No, not that they couldn't, but it shows context of what exactly was their reaction. Because basically an objective, reasonable test for a threat, at least a true threat in the case law, is that it's like the context in which it's given, who it's directed towards, and then the reaction of the person.
And you don't believe that any sort of compound or multiple different incidents would rise to that level?
Well, the thing is when Giddings heard my comment of digging himself a grave, I was talking about him not being able to control these tickets, how he's writing them, compared to that one that I had just set up where I was replicating the event, and I slept right outside of Jefferson Park with a similar get-up. And so I am, it's more compounding of political hyperbole. And I don't know what else to say when someone's not writing their tickets correctly. Digging yourself a hole or making it hard on yourself, whatever. I've never really used that term very often, so it came out as digging yourself a grave. But the way that he, Giddings, kind of picked it out, or he just kind of pulled it out of the evidence, it looked like that was when their starting point was for their investigation for attempted influence.
Now, this is your interpretation of the
evidence,
not necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's not much of a record.
Feeling of the officers.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But it's based upon the objective evidence that no police report was really started over the
until the second statement about digging somebody's grave.
Yeah, okay. And so in there also they commented that I made reference to a warrant out for Mike West. So maybe they're trying to pull that out of this idea that I tried to citizen arrest tickets before, and then this digging yourself a grave. But it's cherry picking because, like I said that digging yourself a grave. I said the quit your jobs comment to basically everybody. I mean, anybody who was there. Rhonda was there. Mike West isn't even the one that's writing me the tickets, and so it's actually Wes Haynes is the one that I was sort of saying that to. And so another reason, it was something I'm going to bring up in court, is why did no one charge me for attempting to influence Wes Haynes? Because I technically said that to Wes Haynes. If that's the comment of, or the actual what's going to be used for the elements of attempted influence. Because the whole point of digging yourself a grave is that was...
I have to prove between and including, and that's why I was asking you about the different times and the different statements made to the different officers involved, because we're looking at a time frame between and including September 8th to September 30th, right? So we're looking at an entire time frame.
Yeah, and so technically speaking, I mean, what I'm going to probably do is get a motion to dismiss, or it would have been something like a bill of particulars asking you guys to clarify which exactly events you're going to allege fill each element. And so, but basically the digging yourself a grave comment was...
So is that something that you intended on filing at the filing deadline?
I mean, technically I can still do this motion to dismiss because it's going to be potentially just lack of jurisdiction.
You asked for a bill of particulars, so that is a different...
Yeah. That was, I think you're supposed to ask that like right away within 2 weeks or something. I never got a chance to, so.
Right. That was my question, because if that's your intention, then I just wanted to dissuade you that time frame appears to have passed. I mean, I know that I'm getting it. It looks like the time for filing the motions, especially motions for bills of particulars, are probably gone.
Yeah, but naturally it's going to fall into the category of if there aren't any critical or essential elements even listed, it's kind of a bare bones affidavit.
So this is kind of a judgment for acquittal.
Exactly. If it doesn't fit the elements, and so.
So I present the witnesses, they say what they're going to say. We have the judge review all that evidence, and then absolutely, I anticipated you, as everybody does that at the halftime motion. So so you'll get that, and we'll see if the judge even thinks we're there.
So,
or I had proved it. So.
Yeah. So basically, the comment, if it can be extrapolated to support the previous comment. All I have is my context of just when I'm saying things that are in the middle of tickets. Obviously, I'm letting them both write me tickets. I didn't study citizens arrest Giddings for writing me any tickets. I had the opportunity there. In fact, I had more of an issue with Giddings' ticket on its face just being no designation, rather than more of a bureaucratic fight with the camping ticket.
Issue, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. And so, just, I mean, like, I don't want to say this, but my brother and I have been forced to sort of become very open-minded about all the possibilities out there, and we don't really like to, blame or frame anybody, but we were pretty shocked, and it kind of made a lot of sense that that they kind of wanted to just pick on me. And I hate to say that, but Giddings, I had a pretty lengthy conversation with him. Basically, we're finding out from all of our other tickets, our 50 other cops we ran into in other jurisdictions, about 8 of them, that they're kind of nigger lynchers. And so it's really hard to explain the racism of how they, guilt until proven innocent, basically, and they don't let you prove your innocence. And so from there, basically, the whole nature of the tickets has always been a bureaucratic nature in its entirety. We need that ticket to fight the appeal, and I got the appeal back, and even though I lost it, because I couldn't explain my side of the story better, I got what my nugget was, which is the intellectual dishonesty of the appeal lawyer, or appeal judge, to basically he didn't present his appeal correctly in terms of like the final court, which is like YouTube and like the UN and stuff like that. I have a way to explain the actual bureaucratic nature of all these appeals, and though some of them I have succeeded, and some basically we have a lot of other tickets that we've taken on purpose to prove these points that they don't have any probable cause. We have cops all the time now showing up to our trials now. We have all sorts of other motions dismissed that we've been putting in, and so we've been actually really busy. So in general, what I'm trying to say is bureaucratically, we have been the paperwork side specifically because we know violence goes nowhere. And so the only thing that got mixed up here was a premature pickup. We know that there's like a sliding scale of interest of justice of the peace of the people versus the interest of the person. And from the South Gold Park incident onwards, I had a separate, completely unrelated citizen's arrest dealio going on. And because they didn't ask me about it, because they cherry-picked all this evidence, they framed me for attempting to citizen's arrest over tickets. I kid you not. if you look at that audio and where he's stating that I said I did it, and where he's stating that Mike West or West Haynes said don't touch him, is chronologically in the audio at the beginning, because that's where they had to allege it.
I'll let you know, that audio, I tried to listen to it, and maybe it was the machine I was listening to it on. I have a very tough time hearing anything.
Oh,
very
it's
well enough.
You get like headphones.
Yeah, I think that's what I've got to do, especially after this conversation.
Yeah.
And
no, I promise.
Obviously, in preparation for the trial, because I'm going to submit those two exhibits to the judge, and I know which one you're referring to for the Jefferson Park one. Certainly, I'll have that queued up because I believe that about 19 minutes in, I think is when.
Yeah, exactly. But if you listen to the 19 minutes, that was the whole context of actually before and after. I talked about the tickets and stuff.
Go ahead and try to have the judge listen to that in context, obviously, which makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, basically when you look at the witness statement of Mike West and the Giddings police report, and then when they pass it off to Pyrrhic, they cherry-picked less and less, and the actual, what they're pulling out was even less and less of what they're writing down, basically to build something to get me in over. And in this case, it was citizens arrest over tickets. Sorry, I'm not that stupid, but they don't have much to work with. And so since there was a citizens arrest that was going on, and me talking about warrants, which I said both Mike West and West Haynes, so I'm talking about that alleged violations of human rights, civil rights, whatever, U.S. CGO. The kicker is if you actually look at the third video footage of the third citizens arrest attempt in New Jersey, I was I was as specific as I naturally could have been. I didn't know anyone was building a case, otherwise I would have been more specific in saying that it's not over tickets, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't know that anyone was building me that kind of case, building a case against me like that. So, but I was still as specific as I felt I needed to. I said, Mike West, you're innocent until proven guilty, man. I'm just trying to get you in for a harassment charge. I haven't been able to process for like over a month now. And so, we've seen this with other jurisdictions, with other cops. It's actually a really big pattern of behavior where they will try and take you in with as little information as they possibly can, because they like the sweet spot of such as, let's put it this way, a shallow investigation that they don't have to exonerate you because they already have enough evidence to convict you, basically. And so the cops do this a lot, where they basically, perfect example is there's a case law of a girl they called the cops for an assault. They show up and they had performed about a 5-10 minute investigation on the perpetrator, gave her 20 seconds, and then ignored a witness statement that from someone else that was trying to explain that it was the other way around. And basically the cops actually thought that they needed to arrest her. And basically it was proven later that there was no arguable probable cause because they didn't do a minimal investigation, and that they thought they had what they needed to work with to get someone in, because it's just kind of a sweet spot. It's a premature pickup. I can explain it better in a different way with another case really easily in a sec. But
no, it's all right. I mean, it's all PC determination.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway. Yeah, exactly. Arguable probable cause.
I'm well versed.
Yeah. So. But yeah, the thing that concerns me the most, the number one thing I've been trying to get through to City Council for over a year now, through the internal affairs, through judicial requests. We just have so many avenues, and one of the avenues that we had kind of given up on was the DA's office, and so that's why it's really interesting to talk to you this late into it. But basically, internal affairs won't take their own calls. And we've seen this with other jurisdictions. They'll ratify out. Basically, it's an image problem. They don't want the worst thing ever to come out. And the worst thing ever did come out. And if you actually go over the audio real loud, and you can see the entire event and listen to it and go off of what Mike West is saying, he had to come up with something that, because Giddings is asking him for statements, now he's on the hook. And that's when he also started defaming about the Softball Park incident, saying that I interrupted him, and basically because they kind of know that I might be building a case. And they basically, if you actually listen to the actual audio and compare it to those 5 statements of, he said he tried to citizens arrest him. Mike West, West Haynes said don't touch him. He said he continued to talk about citizens arrest and human trafficking. He said quit your job or lose your life. That was in his little statement, so it's not what I even said. And by the way, it's quit your jobs, obviously, so it's not even directed toward him. And then at the very end, the really scary thing is when he said,
directed towards both, not just one.
Yeah, it was for Rhonda, it was just everybody. Hey man, you guys.
Quit your jobs, and then you never said lose your life after that?
No, I never said lose your life. No, never. Nope. I said only in that one triple question. It was, hey man, quit your job. Quit your jobs, probably save your lives.
Probably save your lives as well.
Yeah, and so probably, by the way, just so you know, probably is not like, well, you're probably gonna lose your life anyway. It's more like probably like if my complaint ever gets anywhere, that I might actually have some ground to for some government to arrest you for crimes. 42 USC to charge you for fines, whatever the bureaucratic and thing in 42 USC, no probable cause, so forth. And so basically, when he said quit your job to save your life, or he in his statement said he said I should quit or I could lose my life. Definitely not that. And then he followed up with the final statement of I asked him what he meant by that, and he said he had nothing to say. And obviously, if you listen to the audio, that is very, very clear.
You're saying that there's quite a bit of explanation after that.
Yeah. In fact, he actually said, thanks for letting me get these details out. He actually said at the very end of that, I asked him later. I didn't do anything immediately after he said that. I finished writing my tickets, and then later I asked him what he meant by that, and he said he didn't have much to say. That was so opposite. When I said those statements, he immediately asked me what I meant by that, and then I immediately gave an answer because I was just a political hyperbole. And so the framing is that they basically had to move goalpost after goalpost after goalpost, charge stack, fact stack, whatever you want. But it's 100% pretty damning, and it's kind of scary that I've been able to report this to other people, other police officers, and no one wants to touch it. But that is an attempting to influence charge, him writing that to Giddings. He's trying to affect the outcome of the case. It's verifiably false, so it's what's so scary about it. But nevertheless, all it was just an unrelated citizen's arrest, and all of my evidence that if I were to present, is basically that it was all unrelated to this, and that all of my comments were political in nature, and that I never actually did try and stop anybody from, writing tickets. So also too, there are also like some, logical arguments, like how would I know what to sue him over if I stopped the ticket from happening? I would have nothing to present as my evidence. So I actually need the tickets. It was actually kind of funny how they thought they could frame me on something so due process-y, violative.
Well,
whatever,
yeah, I don't think that was really the issue, at least not from my reading of the case. It was really that his actions were affected by perceived threats made by you to him is really what the bulk of the case was, right? So nothing about if you didn't write a ticket and the civil aspect of it, at least. It seems like that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and actually, thanks for bringing this up. Basically, the other timeline of events was how they sort of built their case. It started off as like a menacing case, and then they arrested me for a harassment and obstructing for the third Lima Trains event, because they had probable cause correctly, or not correctly, but they originally thought it was unrelated to the previous events, and it wasn't. So, but then they dropped it, and then they went ahead and charged me with the attempted influence. And so they're just kind of building this case up, and by the time that third citizen's arrest happened, or same thing with the comment. No, it's fine. But the same thing with the comment of doing yourself great is basically we see this where they'll leave an investigation open, see if they can start pulling in more evidence to support their convictions. And I was already going down a completely different path, and they basically just swept up all my evidence of my other stuff, my bureaucratic nature, and my doing yourself grave. And, I didn't even know Mike West was going to, be told that. It wasn't directed towards him. I would have said that about anybody that was writing tickets in the forest all incorrectly. And so
you had Tom Martin for a while, right? But then
he got forced on me. That was really unusual.
And Dan Quinn.
Yeah, there's no public or there's no application. Cal kind of did a little defaming there, pro se's, and
I hate getting in cases, way after the fact, because it's one of those ones where this one was set for trial before I even came into the division. Now that's not saying that we can't do anything at this late stage in the game, but it also sounds like the trial is going to be a forum for you to cross-examine Wes Haynes, cross-examine...
Exactly, Mike West, absolutely.
And then, so I think almost at this stage, we just go through the trial. It's a court trial, so we can have all that evidence presented for the judge. And I understand that this conversation, you just wanted to to share your side of the story.
Well, possibly also for you to do the research and realize that they're
And I
lying.
absolutely will.
Maybe
I'm just
drop
trying.
it.
I'm just wanting to make initial comments now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to know where we're at, but so it seems like I don't know if this is, to me, this is a dismissal or nothing type situation, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, I get where you're coming from. Obviously, you have well researched this case. You've had many dealings with the police in this community. Yeah. And
I didn't want to be this guy.
Right. But
whatever. You know.
But this is right. This is why we have this system set up, and this is you get to now present your case to the judge. I think at this stage, I understand what your position is. I'll go back and read everything through. Certainly, there's some issues that I want to explore, because when Giddings asked West to go ahead or was it Purick, to present him with a statement, that could be argued that was his. So I don't know if that rises to the level of a public servant influence, right? Like you're talking about, because. So I don't know. I have listened.
Exactly.
So that would be like, oh, that's what my recollection of that is.
Yeah.
And then so.
Also, too, just to get this out of the way, this is the one bigger fact was going over just like their SWAT team policy. Basically, they really didn't follow anything for. Doing something when Mike West did see me again. Basically, real quick, at the Lee Martinez Park first actual camping event, at the very end, right after the alleged actual citizen's arrest over Softball, I asked them if it was like if we can stay here or if we have to pack up and move. Are we being moved along, basically? And he said, pack your stuff up, you got a couple hours. And basically, we wanted to challenge that. Get an lawful contact ticket or something, because we need a place to sleep and we're tired of trying to make it out to the city limits outside every night. And basically, they sorry, rewind just a second. I stayed there in that same spot, and I didn't even know that Mike West had seen me later a couple of times. And so in his witness statement, there is a time on the 14th that he said he saw me again and that he was directed by his supervisors not to contact me. Right. And that's the real contention I have, is because I think that digging yourself a grave comment was not until the 15th when Giddings would have been able to say with Mike West to Mike Calhoun, start the procedure of no contact. And so I think Mike West is actually trying to fudge where the no contact order was.
So let me make sure I understand
beforehand.
The timeline, I think, is essential.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my goal, honestly, was to put everyone on the stand and see if they can all have the same stories, and I know they're not, from Purick to Giddings to West.
Well, you know what, if that happens, I mean, I'll let you know. If and I've done this before, I have trial, because unfortunately, I'm in a position where, like I said, this is all I know.
Yeah, you got it.
And then anecdotally, what people tell me, because I know the other attorneys who have gone to trial with you and your brother, right? So this is a situation where, if that is the case, if we go to trial and through my 7 witnesses, no one is telling the right story, then that's very concerning to me. And you make your motion for judgment of acquittal, and I don't object, and then the case just gets dismissed right then and there. Certainly it doesn't happen often, because I tend to believe my police officers, because I do hold them to a higher standard, and I'm hoping they're not lying and trumping up charges on people, because that's deplorable, and I don't support that in any way, shape, or form. So
I figured you guys, I don't want to defame ultimately. I think just Cliff Rydell, I've caught him in actual fraud with my appeals, but I know that you guys have this capacity to both see the innocent in someone and exonerate them,
I try to tell people always ask me, he's like, what do you do when you have to prosecute an innocent person? I'm like, I like to think I've never prosecuted an innocent person, because I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, because that's not why I signed up for this job, right? Yeah. So you're saying Mike West saw you on the 14th?
Yeah, that's what he's claiming in his report.
But at that time, he was already told not to have any contact with you or your brother and just leave you alone. However, this was not even brought to his supervisor's attention until the 15th or 16th at Jefferson Park.
Yeah, until they did yourself a grave comment. And so you can go, basically all this stuff is kind of the sort of the other half of the investigation that I'm talking about that they should have done. And they, we can all go talk to Mike Calhoun and find out what happened. And I thought about even subpoenaing Mike Calhoun, but it's just,
certainly right. You can definitely do that.
Well, burden of proof and stuff. And actually, to be honest with you, some of the tactics I've learned in the past is, like unlawful conduct because I came to the table with a defense, but not enough to counter defend. I was actually defamed, and actually that was kind of what built them into wrongfully convicting me. And so it was basically Deschaines. Once I got to the very end, I was very accurate. I said hearsay, 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 and then Deschaines didn't know what else to do but say, "See, look, he has no evidence to provide." And so if I had kept quiet, I might have had everything fair, but because I opened my mouth, I got defamed. And so I'm in a position here where I could provide a full counter defense. I could have subpoenaed everybody, get my brother up there and stuff like that. But truthfully speaking, it's a lot easier if you just reduce it down to just the examples, the variables, the nitty gritty of what is a threat.
I prefer trials that way because I think that it's cleaner and comes across.
Yeah,
Some trials
there's
are
not
messy by nature, but this one I don't think is set up that way. Certainly I don't think, and I do want to comment on your personal history. That seems like you have a rough one. So it's.
I've been trying to bureaucratically clean up my life for a while,
right.
with paperwork and proof and evidence.
I certainly don't think that that's relevant for this trial, but.
Well, it's the context of the word bureaucrat. I mean, they were all alleging that I'm citizen arresting over tickets when that's like.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like your young child.
Oh yeah.
And all those other cases. So,
they kind of, in a way, we always like to start off with all that context because it's what's forced me into having to, fight for my rights because I've never really had a life up to this point. So.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
But yeah, if you ever want to go crack open an old case, my Blair cases are really bad. There's these 3 people out there that absolutely I knew them from school. I could even tell you where we split the money. We spent it on his cars. Dennis Tice, he had a gold Camaro over at Frontline Motorsports. He spent the money that he told them he gave me. Basically, the reason why I've been stuck in this stupid boat, David, is because we really didn't know much going into it. We kind of got railroaded. I had a public defender that bailed, Snyder, back in the day. And so from there, we sort of actually fell into a really interesting crack, and it's actually helped us out more than anything else, and that is that once we kind of got railroaded by the public defenders, we started defending ourselves, but obviously we don't know much, and that's why some of the cases I even got wrongfully convicted in. But every time I fought myself, I was able to teach myself more concepts and learn more, and it's really helpful
more
stuff.
knowledgeable than most pro se defendants that I've ever come across.
Thank you. That's all we do all day long. I mean, it's just paperwork.
Mr. Montgomery, I'll go ahead and, is there anything else you'd like me to review other than a careful headphone review of the audio and compare it very closely with Mr. West's statement?
And my story here, yeah.
And your story here. Is there anything else that you'd like me to consider?
I've never actually gotten to the point of getting what I think is the full story. What I'm going to do eventually is an actual timeline of events myself for my own records or organization.
That's
I might
good.
throw that to you.
I think chronologically is a good way to tell a story, and I think that's the bulk of what a jury trial or a court trial in this case is. So I think we need to do that for Judge Blanco, and then so I will also be doing that, and then hopefully ours will sync.
Yeah. So look at it this way. Your guys' position would be otherwise that I tried to use a citizen's arrest to mitigate the writing of tickets and using the threat of the violence of the followed through with arrest as if you write me a ticket again, I'm going to citizen's arrest / kill you, because everybody knows that a citizen's arrest could be up to and including death.
There's certainly that is one factor. I think that the comments, again, with a grain of salt that you have presented to me today, in regards to digging your own grave, losing your life, all those taken together over the time frame between September 8th up to September 25th.
Yeah, it's kind of the context you never got.
September 30th.
And the context they never put in their reports.
Right, sure, and I think context is the key to this case, right? Because if you're saying those and the context is not violent in nature, then I have a much more difficult time to prove that in order to affect or alter the public servant's decision, you use some sort of threat of violence or economic reprisal to do that. Because certainly, Mr. West, or I guess Officer West, was not ticketing you. He was no longer contacting you. He was not doing anything. So his behavior normally would have been to ticket you, but it wasn't anyway. So his behavior was altered, and that was why that behavior changed.
Yeah, and they can change. They can choose to change their behavior whatsoever. But then, like, retroactively say that that's how they were a victim. It's kind of like, let's put it this way. That's why the way I said it, I thought it was clear enough. I said, hey man, if you don't quit your job, but then stop writing us tickets, because I'm saying if you don't quit your job and keep writing tickets, then I'll do the alleged or whatever. So that's why I said if I
think that
don't.
what we're talking about, that's the basis for the crime.
Yeah.
Charge,
And that's why I specifically said, hey man, if you don't quit your job but stop writing statements, you'll get in trouble too. We don't want that either. We want you to like not get in trouble. We want you to make your own decisions on your own accord with your own volition.
And
we can't stop.
How Wes took those statements, obviously.
And so but like I said, the reaction of the person being like a week later is kind of like.
Right, and I think that's
maybe he was thinking about it. Maybe who knows?
Yeah, and then I think, I think we are both in agreement about what the facts of the case, or at least what the charges are based on, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how else to tell you, but like,
and it certainly, I mean, I'm talking to you here, and it's a pleasant conversation. I certainly don't think you're raising your voice or getting all out of control, and I hope you feel the same way about me. That's certainly not how you're depicted in the police reports, right?
Oh yeah, well, I mean. It's hard when we're dealing with intellectual dishonest people like in the streets and like them telling me stuff in the streets and we ask questions in the streets, and so we've kind of toned it down, bureaucratic and stuff like that. But I don't know how else to say this, but like I've just never been that kind of guy. I know that the way that comments are made, it's going to be an objectively reasonable standard if it engenders fear in somebody, regardless of my intent, subjective or whatnot. It's just read enough case law that it's going to be on the objective side.
Right, and the same holds true for police, not their subjective intent, it's an objective standard.
Yeah, so they might have subjectively not reacted correctly to this alleged threat. And so all I can say is, I didn't intend it, man. I tried my way to clarify, and I thought I was talking pretty eloquently with the whole digging yourself a grave comment. There's a whole lot of follow-up about that, about the specific.
Yeah, and that's really, I think that was one of the most concerning statements, at least.
I would never say that.
but
hey, people, they're fishing for things to charge people.
A poor choice of words, I guess, maybe in the best circumstance. But
true. But free speech, you don't want to chill it. It's we kind of wanted to have it.
I get that too, but I also don't want people threatening my officers not to write tickets.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
by all means.
So that's where
who knows? I'm even willing to say, bureaucratically, if the Supreme Court decides that the comments of quitting your job and then following up with and saving your life could be a veiled threat and construed as an objectively way to scare somebody, but personally, I tried to follow up with as non-threatening comments as I possibly could. So
yeah, I mean, I think you get into a tough spot whenever you start calling into question somebody's ability to live when they're in law enforcement. And it definitely shows. I mean, they were very concerned. Yeah,
and by the way, the follow-up of the save your life, because he's asking why that I as well as I could, I said bureaucratically, you're gonna lose your job in the future. You might go to prison, is what I ultimately said at the very end, because that's what happens when you have the government come down on you. I can't send you to prison. I can't do anything. I can't citizens arrest you.
Sure. I can't send anybody to prison either.
Yeah, except for the Software Park citizens arrest, I can get you into the courtroom.
Sure.
I thought I had probable cause. I witnessed a crime in front of me. The 16321 is very specific about that. I've since researched more, and I haven't felt any. I haven't witnessed any big crimes happen in front of me since, at least ones that I thought were just like that. Obviously, I've had people write me really bad tickets. I've had cops ask for tickets back right away, and I've had every reason to go citizen arrest right then and there. But no, I prefer honestly. Let's put it this way, I prefer the bureaucratic route because as a result, for some of my other cases, I was able to go straight to internal affairs and actually clean out internal affairs. And, because just a bunch of cronies and stuff. So, but real quick, just to kind of give you a good example of why my brother and I are stuck in this boat is because we've found, and this is good investigation for your jurisdiction anyways, because this is happening all across the state, at least, maybe the whole country, but we find that cops are they kind of lose their shit when they see a homeless guy, and they don't really have time to go through their elements, or they don't think that the guy's even going to know the law or whatever. And so we've been picked up by cops regularly. It was all an audit. It got so old that we started tape recording it before we even went out there, and we just catch them all the time. We have like 30 cops now, and they're picking us up on private property using solicitation statutes that are purely on a public road, or trespassing without a formal warning, or the definition of solicitation. They think that we're soliciting when we're just holding a sign. And then this one, I was on a U.S. route, and they tried to say that it was an interstate. And every time that this happens, it's because they kind of get hemorrhaged, because we call it out on them right away. We know exactly what to ask. Are you detaining me? What's the statute? And when they don't have any of that live, they just kind of racketeer to sort of mold it and cover it up. And basically, it's all the same crap of people just trying to, not look bad in the eyes of the law and so forth. And so I mean, we haven't made it to the 42 USCs. We're so backed up, and what's so funny is that everyone thinks that we don't have a case now. All the internal affairs won't even listen to us because it's so far behind. But we're well within our statutes, 2 years, and most of these are so ironed out of no arguable probable cause. If there was something to argue out over, sure, but like not meeting the element of designation is just like on its face, not even there. And so equal application of the law, the 14th Amendment and so forth. But let me put it this way. The two kickers that we've gotten are, there was a DU incident where we're at a library, and it's closes at 2. We left when they were closing. And we had bins with our paperwork in it at the time. Didn't have backpacks. And as we're leaving, a suspicious security guard, tries to stop us. And we're from Fort Collins here, so there's a CSUPD and so forth. So when they stopped us, he was all dressed up, what looked to be a cop. And so when we asked him, "Are you a cop?" he said, "Yeah, I am." He wasn't a cop. We didn't know that until midway, after he was already done detaining us, running our name. He ran our name all by himself. They had the little investigation. Somehow they ratified this little section of their world of private property, and because it's in Denver, and there isn't much of a jurisdiction of like county, city, and basically, when we found this happen to us, we immediately called the cops right then and there, and then the cops show up, and the cops were the ones that they've been working with the whole time, and they literally sat us down and kind of applesauced us, or sort of told us off, like, second class citizens, like, "Hey man, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is their job. They have to detain people. It was investigation. It was suspicious. Come on, you left the bins. Blah 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 blah." And all we're saying to them is, I couldn't get the words out fast enough, but I was like, I eventually got up the chains. Okay, first off, internal affairs failed. They said, "Yeah, man, it was just for a couple minutes. You're detained." It's like, security guards can't detain. You go up the next chain, OIM, they didn't get it. They even ran it by their DA, and they didn't get it. And then I eventually called back to their internal affairs again, and I got through to one guy, and I was like, "So does Terry law only apply to cops?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Can you fix this?" And so I have the whole audio on tape of an impersonation charge and an actual false imprisonment that no one will take because it's so ugly. And so that's the tough side, is when they think they can racketeer to get out of it, they'll ratify it, they'll push on through, because they'll just hope that no one will know, and also they don't know their jobs too, so they're cronies. And so the only times that we've had success is like this other situation, is the cheese incident. And so this was at a Commerce City, and basically we've been seeing how these profiles get set up. So real quick, by the way, a profile is something that's short of a statute, but it saves money. And so the park curfews are being used to get rid of the graffitiers, and that's a little bit easier. Camping for the homeless people. 3 unrelated rule for students, but then it ends up being applied against everybody, and then basically I have to give up my right for a 5 unrelated house just because you don't want to police 3 people and your students better. And so it's lazy policing. Honestly, it's violating 4th Amendment, 14th Amendment's just left and right. It's really bad. It's what's causing a lot of stat fraud in this country of, where are all the problems coming from? Because all these homeless people aren't getting help, but then no one knows why they're not having any places to sleep. And basically, it came down to the cheese incident, and this is a perfect example where it was a policy that wasn't on the books. It was their own personal policy. And so you have a Walmart that wants to check their receipt every time, they ask you on your way out. And then they set it up so that they, if you show your receipt, you're fine and dandy. And most people who show up their receipts, they show it on purpose to make it easier, because they think I'm giving it my right to make it easier to fight crime. And then, of course, if you don't show your receipt, they're only supposed to watch you leave get your description, get your plate in the, parking lot, and then go do some investigation, look at video footage, present that video footage to a cop. Now a cop has probable cause for shoplifting. Obviously, if you set up a profile incorrectly and you aren't smart about how crime works, you're going to fall pitfall. And so since I was a male, single looking, basically long hair. I grow it out, a beard, almost to be lynched on roads these days. A cop actually had stopped me on the way out when I had refused to show a receipt, and he's all detaining me backwards now. I'm proving all of my cases because he's like, why don't you show your receipt? And I was like, I'm exercising my rights, and he's like, I fought World War for rights, blah blah blah. Screw you. I know you're lying, kind of thing. And it's like, no, man, just trying to show you guys that you got to do your jobs right. And so while he's detaining me, he has Walmart employees go do some failed investigation. They probably were really rushed. They literally came back in a couple of minutes and said, you didn't pay for it. And then he's like, William, you're under arrest. Takes me to the back of the store, issues me a ticket and everything. And at the very end, on my way out, as they're escorting me out, I was like, oh, hey, guys, here's this receipt, by the way. What do you mean, this receipt? Why didn't you show us that before? And I was like, come on, guys, I'm exercising my rights. You're supposed to do an investigation correctly. And, it was over before it even began. And Internal Affairs, I called them in right away, and they closed it. It was the shortest case I ever had in my entire life. It was a receipt, their ticket, and 2 Internal Affairs emails or letters. So it's a free lawsuit. And, we're trying to prove that people are ultimately falling for this bad math of are you willing to wrongfully convict that one innocent person just to make sure that you can get those 10 criminals? And it's kind of like a shotgun approach. Yeah, exactly. But the way these people set up these policies, even if they know there are policies on the Walmart side, naturally how cops work and ferreting out crime and that probable cause scale of when to pick them up prematurely or whatever, people have a very hard time with seeing the innocent in somebody. And if they're already in prosecution mode, then it's impossible for them to be seen in innocent mode, even though that you could easily exonerate them. And it's kind of like what was the opening statement of the Timothy Masters case was, you as a prosecutor have the obligation to both exonerate the innocent and get the guilty. And you got to do both equally. And it's very hard when you're looking down one field of vision to see the innocent. And so I'll leave you with this. This is my favorite case of all. Oh man, are you ready for this? Okay. Throughout all this, all these tickets and stuff, we get ran down to Denver. But right before we got ran down to Denver, we saw somebody put up a fence. And this was Eric Holsapple. We find out later it's the business owner next to, of Safeway, the property manager of Safeway area.
Is this your other case?
This is my other case. So it's really easy. I wanted to leave it for the end. Basically, our goal was to show that there's the premature picking up without all the elements and so forth, and also the racketeering to kind of retain your probable cause in case you are wrong. And so basically, we saw this fence there hanging out on the side of the Safeway for like a month or something. It was far long before any minor amendment process had even been entered, let alone approved. It took 6 months more for the minor amendment process. But so when we saw the fence, from our previous experience with right-of-way law and so forth from the Giddings, we knew there's a plat, 143-year-old plat, the survey department. If you go down there, it's a big piece of paper. It's really simple stuff. And then we looked up the definitions of right-of-way. It's super easy, 1742.
I'm dismissing the trespass, by the way.
You are? You are dismissing it?
The trespass count.
Just the trespass count?
Well, you still have the obstruction and resisting and violation of bail bonds.
Well, holy crap.
Resisting and violation.
But
I think you're right. There was an easement. I don't think that they're.
Well, yeah. So.
We confirmed it with the city attorney's office, and so I believe we can successfully prove count 1 of the trespass, and that's why I think that we need to chat about it if and when we decide what's going on with this trial case.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is really good. I've been trying to get through to you guys for so long on this. I've tried Internal Affairs. I've tried everybody. This is the best I can come up with. There's case law out there for when a person is detained or seized under the Fourth Amendment, right? And it's either a consent to authority if you say stop, or it's a physical, seizing of them if they don't stop.
Sure.
And there's one case law I actually found out there of when neither happens. And so it was kind of a standoff there. I wasn't conceding; they weren't otherwise doing the physical. And in this case law, it was a standoff at a house, a hostage situation, and the gunshot was the point at which they decided that that's when somebody was seized. Sure. And the rights come into play and so forth. And so I consider the point at which I was seized to be when they physically took away all my rights and arrested me in the traditional sense of the form.
Sure.
And then basically, I don't know how I could get an obstruction charge when I haven't actually obstructed yet. And that's one thing. Also, you have to be arrested first. I can get you the actual statute for that, but you have to be arrested before you can be written a ticket. You can only get written ticket if you qualify, and the qualifications involve if you are willing to sign it, if he trusts you, and if you have an ID and stuff like that. And so if you don't want to sign it, then that wouldn't be obstruction to not write a ticket. And so they're going to have to explain how they got slowed down of getting this, arresting me. Like they say they couldn't arrest me because I wouldn't show an ID. I mean, and so the whole point is that we've found, and this is a really good place to say it, but we've found places where yuppies or, this racket of these people, cops and so forth, really rich people, they have pitfalls. And so there is obviously case law out there where if you don't show an ID, that can be considered obstruction. And that's when the cop is doing a reasonable suspicion stop and not a probable cause stop. And so if you get probable cause, if you're arrested, like there's nothing that they're going to stop. I mean, you could obstruct the booking process from there, things like that. But you obviously have to qualify, and so they have to show how I slowed them down. And I think there was actually a case law that was specifically about this exact same thing, and the judges said something like, the cops would sure love it if they could actually write in a subsection of the obstruction statute to say that if you don't show an ID, that by itself is obstruction. So obviously the ultimate thing is that the cops don't have probable cause for my ID in the first place, or even arguable probable cause. They don't have a scintilla shred of evidence that it was ever private property. It was just kind of a bunch of inchoate hunches about, they didn't know the definition of right of way. It looked like a street or a sidewalk or wasn't. And you might have something with the business owner, but they never actually looked into it. And so no probable cause for my ID.
So you're trying to say that because the cops didn't have access to these maps, they were supposed to take your word for it?
No, not maps. Naturally you lose probable cause if my evidence is going to be exculpatory. They don't finish their investigation minimally.
Not after the fact, though.
But keep in mind, they have to have probable cause for private property trespassing in the first place.
Sure, which it appears to be to them at the time
Yeah,
they contact you, correct?
And then, so there's the probable cause, but then there's the arguable probable cause. And so an objectively reasonable cop who knows 1742, which you don't even need to know maps or plats or the finer details. But once you see that email that specifically mentions that it's placed within the right-of-way, I think an objectively reasonable cop would not be able to keep extrapolating that would be somehow potentially private property without any evidence when he has this obvious evidence here. And that's different than my mens rea element of just saying I'm innocent. This is like you just have to do an investigation.
Sure,
And so,
I understand your position, but I'm just saying that, we did further research based on the trespass, and I don't think that we can prove the trespass if we're dismissing the trespass. Whether or not we even go through with everything else is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
I really don't care about this case just yet because we have this other
Exactly.
until August 21st. But I just want you to put your mind at ease that I haven't filed a motion to dismiss this yet because I figured you and I would wait till we figured out what's going on with this trial. If we go to trial, whatever the results are, then let's talk about if we're going to do anything.
Yeah, I've got lots of finer details of the charges there, but actually not really. Real quick, there's disorderly conduct, which I was getting mad at them not listening to me and not taking my evidence, and they actually have proof in their police report that they didn't even accept. Brady didn't even take my email. And so there's a case law out there of disorderly conduct where a boy was yelling at his mom because the cop had took his money during a stop, and they ruled that was reasonable noise. So it's unreasonable noise versus reasonable. The burden of proof is when you guys get unreasonable.
Sure.
But and then my favorite one, real quick, I promise I'm done, is the resisting arrest. I had to laugh at that one because all you have to ask is how many other ways can someone get over a fence, a step stool? I didn't inherently by myself install this fence and then force them to go over and create this substantial risk, which by the way, they were asking me to jump over the fence, which is itself unsafe. Why would you expect me to do that? And when you jump in the fence, there's actually a 2-foot the seat wall there, so it's actually more safe to jump in the fence. You only have to fall 4 feet versus me jumping out and I have to fall 6 feet. And so obviously what happened, they got bolt cutters, and so I highly doubt I'd fit any elements of creating a substantial risk of causing bodily injury. And right when they said I was under arrest, and I went like this, and Brady said he didn't resist. And so I know you guys, the cops, I don't want to say you guys, but the cops have, they have to kind of put on an image and show and, bury a guy because there could be something in there still. And, I have a very hard time believing that there's any arguable probable cause left for any of those elements. The whole thing was a rubber stamp, and that's why I did it. So, but I'm really concerned because I had talked to Internal Affairs about that, but You guys, I was the most concerned about Bob because I told Bob all this all the long time ago, and he's like, "Nope, trespassing private property. You're going to court." And I'm like, oh, it was a sting, man. It was like I was secret shopping, you guys.
Bob's the one
So
that confirmed the trespass.
So he is. I take that back. I don't want to accuse anybody or anything, but like, it took me a year and a half to try and explain these things. Ultimately, what my goal was to show that somebody else stole public land in the name of homelessness, and that the city is now super duper 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 liable because they didn't send a takedown notice right away and they didn't inform their cops about it. And so cops happen to not know anything about that area and kind of ratified the stolen nature of the land. And the reason I really want to tell you this now is because, holy crap, I have failed to start this investigation with Internal Affairs. I've tried 10 times now, and the reason I'm saying this is because I called into dispatch and I found out that they've been illegally taking calls there for years thinking that's private property. I told them it was public. They're like, no, you need to check with the city and stuff. And I was like, I did. And they're like, yeah, right. And so I have audio of them saying that they've been illegally taking the people there for years. And I pulled up an actual call list from 460, hundreds, thousands of move-alongs. And then I actually also got some audio of people being moved along to there. And then basically cops saying that it's land use code or that it's, we don't know this or this. And so I basically caught nobody knowing actual probable cause because these cops don't have the training. For, I understand it's hard on the spot when you have all these new laws and stuff, but like probable cause is based upon a cop that is knowledgeable of all governing law. Obviously, we have to hold them to a standard of the objectively reasonable cop. And then, sure, if it's not established case law, then it could be a mistaken, objectively reasonable mistake. That's where that arguable probable cause comes in. But some of these were just straight up.
If the cop didn't know at the time and he believed that it was the case, then that is still a valid arrest.
Yeah, but if
it was a valid arrest at the time, even though it's proved later to be out, right, then the resisting arrest, then the obstruction, all that stuff would still be a viable, valid charge against you.
Yeah, well, I think arguable probable cause is more for 420. I think just regular probable cause is what you guys still have the burden of proof in your obstruction charge that you were in the lawful execution of your duties. That's one of the things. And so I feel like you would never be able to have even arguable probable cause for private property there without, or with those conjectures of it's nearby, kind of, of course there's going to be a project, of course, but maybe not. I mean, 50-50, like these fences go up in the right of way all the time too. And basically, you would never have the probable cause for me private property trespassing because you should have already had the probable cause for a 2384. 2384 is a municipal code misdemeanor criminal violation for putting up a fence in the right of way without a permit. That was the call I took when I went into the city and explained it, and they sent the takedown notice. A cop should have done that. And I actually got Kinsman on audio too. So it's really funny. They lawyer up, and so this is how we get our ghost protocol out. We asked him before he knew it was in case. He said that was public property. Then I got into this case, and I asked him, and he's like, oh man, I can't tell you that you're in a case. And it's like, come on, man, you already told me. And then this third time around, I asked him again, and he's like, I think you asked me once, but I don't really know. But then I reminded him, I was like, dude, I got this email that I captured between you and City Council. City Council was asking about that fence, and you were the representation for your entire police department, and you mentioned the minor amendment. You actually attached it as a freaking attachment in the email, and I have that. And so I know cops know that's right away. I know they can get to it, and I know we've asked other objectively reasonable cops. They know they have no issues. They look up your maps and plans and stuff. And so it just happened to be this weird ratified pit of previous cops and people that don't know right of ways, or Giddings doesn't know, maps, or no one's ever told them, or it's never come up in debate, but it's still something that's so freaking the part of their jobs that, if they knew a single element of either 1742 or 2384 or a minor amendment process or a map or a plat, or just their patrol vehicle map, or just counting to 100, well, not every street's 100, but, any of those would have led them immediately down the path to finding out that Eric Holzapfel did this, and basically they stopped that investigation shy. They kind of freeze-framed it because that's where they like to retain their probable cause and not like that. And basically, like I said in the previous case, somebody calls up and the cops frame them for the wrong crime, for the perpetrator's crime.
Well, it sounds like you got a good motion for that.
So,
one.
No, I'm really curious to see if you guys would want to try and question it, because I did not obstruct it. I did not resist.
Well, the way that the prosecution would fight that would be to dismiss that case. We can prove it. But again, we have other fish to fry before.
No, absolutely. Burden of proof is on you guys, and I am shocked and awed, and I'm thoroughly appreciative that that you guys obviously realized your elements of premises and property, or premises and permission.
Bob and I reviewed that case, and we remember calling it dismissed that trespass. Now, whether or not we go on from there is a different issue. We didn't even decide to get to it because we have other things going on.
Yeah, still think about it. But yeah,
I will.
I'll think about it,
and I will review what we had talked about regarding a case that we have present. And we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. One last thought. It's kind of like resisting there. Basically, when they saw all the possibilities in their mind of like, oh, he's another fence. Oh, we have to go get him. How are we going to go get him? Oh, it's a fence. Oh, we might be in danger. And it just kind of looks like they framed me with one of the 6 possibilities of how to get over there. And so I don't really feel like I created a situation where they had to pick only to jump the fence and safely get me. So I was kind of shocked when they did that. So don't really feel like I got the elements. I'm not trying to be a bad guy or anything, but I'm just trying to not. Truthfully speaking, we're trying to get a little bit of reform going, where basically these people, it's kind of a Saudi Arabia, they like to have the rules for themselves, and they like to hold the people to that fire, but they don't hold themselves to that fire. And so please help these people self-police themselves, or arrest them, or we'll arrest you because you won't be able to self-police yourself if it's found out all the later, if it's no problem. But I think at the very least we know that there was no case for trespassing, so chances are let's get it right there. There might not be probable cause. So thank you very much. It's really good to meet you, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.